King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast. Here is the King of Podcasts.
Welcome to episode 343 of the Broadcasters Podcast. This is King of Podcasts here with you, thanking all of you for joining me on the program and listening in, wherever you find the program. And by the way, I must make mention of something that I'm working on that's really exciting and wonderful. I am fidgeting. I feel like I'm ADHD when it comes to my website. I can't leave it alone. I just can't. So I constantly have to go make changes to it. So what I've done now is I have redone the website. Again, I took it off of WordPress, put it back on. I don't spend a lot of money on my website. It's just the place I put everything at. And I want to just make it really simple and easy for people to go to. So I now have the King of Podcasts website back in a place where I had it before. You can see the full menu. You can see a link that goes right to the radio network. And I'm going to be changing the radio network page on the website. So it'll be kingofpodcasts.com, and hopefully it'll be at /radio. So you can go ahead and find said programming about the network, because then all the podcasts will be available in one place. I'll have icons so you can go ahead and subscribe to the show wherever you want to go ahead and find it. So you don't have to go right to the website every time. And social media is all there as well. So I already have that set right now. So the production services, all the good stuff that I normally do, I'm putting that back up there and making it, first and foremost. So I'm putting that back up there once again, getting the website all fixed up. I hope you go ahead and take a look at it right now, kingofpodcasts.com. And of course, you go to the radio network page, you hit the button right there on the front of the page, and it takes you right to the radio network page that I've had already there before, but it'll change soon. It'll hopefully be a lot more navigable and much more manageable, and it'll be easier to go ahead and access stuff and all that good stuff. Hopefully that'll be good enough for all of you, and I hope you'll appreciate that. So still got a lot of work to do, but it's something I'll do during the weekend, because I'll find time somewhere between watching Borderlands and The Last Front at the movie theater. So when I go to the movie theater this weekend, it'll get me I will get to the 40 movie mark this year in movies. In what? A little more than 8 months? That's not too bad. That's a pretty good click. And it would be more movies if there would be more to watch. But in some cases, things happen. If I didn't have to cover wrestling pay-per-views on Saturdays and it would be back on Sundays again, it would be much easier for me. And then I can catch movies much more often. But even then, I got football season coming up at the end of the month. It's not easy. But anyways, Paramount, Disney, and iHeartRadio are some of the major media companies that we're going to be bringing up here on the program tonight, because it is that time of year for quarterly earnings reports, if there are any, or losses therein. So those are being reported now. And because of that, all these big corporations are doing what they normally would do. They would start making changes. If they have debt, they need to go ahead and do something to restructure things around a little bit so they can go ahead and make their markers extend out a little bit longer. It's like, they don't have any kind of mafiosos come in to go and collect the money. They're just going to be like, well, we just need to extend our loans out a little bit longer, our quotes, our liens. Could you just extend them out a little bit more, please? iHeartRadio is one of those we talked about last week. Yeah, we can't make, $2.6 billion in 2026. Man, that's going to be tough. Ooh, we should extend that out another 4 years. What do you say? What do you say, Bob? What do you say, Rich? Oh, I think that's a great idea. Does that mean I still get to keep my, CEO pay of $30 million? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, of course. You can keep that. Sure. We'll let you do that. The fun part. So, yeah, the media, the big corporate media doing their normal things, their normal aspirations as they always do. And now here we are once again. Paramount is looking to lay off 15% of its workforce, 2,000 employees off the dole. And how many of those could have been part of the strike last year, whether writers or actors strike, and now they're just getting dropped off? Or they were working with the actors and the writers, things like that. So Variety reports on this. 2,000 employees in a fresh round of cuts. So the merger with Skydance Media is coming forward, and we've not talked about it too much. We did mention that Skydance was going to go and buy them off. But now, with the layoffs, the company expects to record a $300 to $400 million restructuring charge in quarter three. So, yeah, they're going to help with the books with that. So Paramount had their second quarter earnings call, and the company announced they had a massive operating loss of $5.98 billion write down on the value of its cable TV networks. Well, that's the amount of debt that iHeartMedia has, doesn't it? 5.2? Was 5.7. It's 5.2. They made a little bit of a dent. The devaluation of the cable business was tied to its agreement to be acquired by Skydance Media, which will close September 30th, 2025. So the job cuts will be primarily in marketing and communications departments at the company, with some right sizing in other areas, including legal, finance, and other corporate functions. Marketing. So, obviously they're not going to have the money that they're going to have like they used to with the kind of money they could use, towards traditional marketing. Or maybe these companies are not going to be able to need those people, I guess. They're going to just find them as antiquated or just no longer necessary, maybe. And they'll just use influencers or other ways to go with social media in order to market things like that. I don't know. Or they'll outsource. Who knows what they could do? Layoffs will be completed by the end of 2024. Oh, right around Christmas time? That is so awesome. Yeah, I love that. Right around Christmas. Let's go ahead and fire some people. Love that. At the moment, Paramount Global has 21,900 employees worldwide at the end of 2023. And in February, they already eliminated 800 positions. So let's go for another 2,000 out of the mix. Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. So there already were plans in place to cut $500 million in annualized costs, including layoffs, before the Skydance merger was cinched. Now, Skydance wants to go ahead and make more cuts. So they're working with consulting firm Bain & Company, achieving, hopefully, to go ahead and gain at least $2 billion in annualized cost synergies at Paramount. They also said in this earnings call, this is from the chairman of Redbird Sports and Media and former CEO of NBC Universal, during a press briefing, that costs for Paramount will be coming from the linear TV business. Quote, "We know that linear is challenged and declining. We've got to run through these businesses in a different way as they decline." And then Variety does a great job of giving us the long list of layoffs that have been done in major media and tech companies. So the list has this. As of August 2024, there's going to be 2,000 layoffs. Disney will be still laying off about 140 employees in their TV division. BBC 500. Fox Entertainment, not too much, just 30. Warner Brothers Discovery will be eliminating 1,000 jobs. Chicken Soup for the Soul, which was shuttering now, is 1,000. Let's see here. PlayStation will be dropping 900 employees, or 8% of their workforce. And Electronic Arts, 5% of their workforce. Oh, that's after the strike got fixed up, right? The IATSE, IATSE, and the fact that they got unionized, right? They had a new union deal. So to make sure that union deal stays good in place, let's fire some people. Let's go ahead and fire them really good. That's what they're doing. This is the way the corporate playbook goes, right? Next part. How about this? They also sold 2 entertainment websites in their portfolio. And those are Comic Book and PopCulture.com. They've been sold to Savage Ventures, a digital media operator run by Sam Savage. They were part of the CBS Interactive portfolio since 2018 when they were acquired, while Savage was CEO at Comic Book and Pop Culture. Now, no layoffs have been part of the sale, and employees were made comparable offers to join Savage Ventures with the process, as they said. And the word is that both of those websites are not going anywhere. Well, at least they're keeping their jobs. That's a good thing. Now, there are still some more assets to sell. So Paramount still has the BET Media Group, which comprises BET, the main channel, streamer BET Plus, as well as VH1 and BET Studios. And in the past several years, Paramount has sold off multiple assets in a bid to scale up efforts in the streaming space to support Paramount Plus. As a small streaming profit for the first time in its latest quarter, 68 million subscribers so far. Yeah, they're not making much money. But now we're starting to see that the companies are doing things that they think are starting to make a little bit of profit for themselves. Paramount has also sold tech site CNET for $500 million in 2020. They had CBS New York's Black Rock headquarters that were sold for $760 million. The Studio City lot for $1.85 billion, and Simon & Schuster, the publisher, for $1.62 billion. So they did a lot of cutting and, kind of downsizing in order to be merged, because that's all they could do. That's the plan that they want to go with. Meanwhile, Disney, it's a different story for them. They're feeling pretty happy because they now have their first ever streaming profit as well. Disney Plus is making them some money. And also, the help of Inside Out 2, making $1 billion, has helped them in their box office. And then add on the Deadpool and Wolverine movie, and they're doing just fine. $900 million. It'll probably happen this weekend, most likely. But they're doing just fine. And it's only their second week. $211 million when it happened, when they first came out, domestically. And this weekend, $96 million for week 2. And they have a little bit of competition. Borderlands is coming out this weekend. It Only Takes Us, based on the YA novel. That's also coming out. So there's a few things to go and look into. And when you look at the full chart, Inside Out right now is still above and beyond. $630 million domestically and $1.558 billion so far this year. By far the most watched movie, the most sold movie this year in the movie theaters. Top grossing so far. So Disney's streaming movie businesses have shifted into high gear, and Disney's stock is up, and they're doing okay. Disney Plus, of course, has the full bundle of Disney Plus, ESPN Plus, and Hulu. Together, that bundle now has become profitable 1 quarter ahead of schedule. They now have an operating income of $47 million on $6.38 billion in revenue, Disney said on Wednesday. And they profited $2.62 billion for the quarter from a loss of $460 million a year earlier. So they were taking losses, but now eventually they moved themselves around. But it took a bundle. Buying more assets and having the bundle as much as they can. But they have to hope that the profit will continue to go ahead and be lavish and continue to go forward to keep happy their stakeholders. I don't know how they're going to do that. That's going to be a very interesting story in itself. Disney raises forecast for full year growth now in adjusted earnings from 30% up from 25%. And they think that streaming profitability and the company's number of core Disney Plus subscribers will grow in the fourth quarter. Now, since Disney Plus launched in November 2019, they have lost more than $11 billion to the streaming wars. And that forced the company to spend more money to produce and license TV shows, sporting events, and movies than it was generating in subscription fees quarter after quarter. And of course, they raised the price of their streaming offerings several times in the last few years, and it did help boost subscription revenue growth. But now there will be new increases of prices that'll be effective in October. A couple more bucks on everybody to go ahead and pay for the bundle. That's coming up soon. And the movie and theater division right now, or legacy TV business for Disney, it is up with income of $254 million, up from $112 million a year earlier when they lost that much. Its first profit since early 2022. And that is benefited from the fact they have Inside Out 2, which has done so well. Again, nearly $1.6 billion in tickets in the global box office. Highest grossing animated film of all time, ahead of 2019's Frozen 2. That's how well they're doing. And now they're hoping that Deadpool and Wolverine will also follow along, getting above that $1 billion mark and really making the money for them as well. And then you have the theme parks where they have the resorts, the cruise line, consumer product sales, video game licensing, and other businesses also getting a revenue increase. They're doing really well with that as well. But they say that the theme parks are going to be struggling. So the operating income in the division to fall by mid-single digit percentage points in the fourth quarter because there will be a softening of demand at U.S. theme parks. Competition for tourist dollars at Disneyland Paris for the Summer Olympics, currently being held in the French capital, and the softening of demand in China. So Disney was really hoping and banking on the fact that theme parks were going to make a lot of money for them. especially when cable TV has gone down, the linear TV's gone down, and streaming was still trying to be picked up. So Disney is one of the few companies that feels good right now out of everything that's happened. But remember, they had to go and really benefit from the fact that they have some quite powerful allies when it comes to ESPN as a sports provider for ESPN Plus. Disney Plus having enough content from the Marvel Star Wars libraries to keep people around to watch, but they're spending so much money on content to make that possible. And finally, they get some things done where some of the movies are starting to pan out. You know, remember they had anime movies last year, you know, like Lightyear, or, you know, some others that they did that just not do well. And Soul didn't do that as well as they could have done. And it's like, you know, they were struggling a bit, but Inside Out 2 nailed it. Home run for them. And they've needed one of those for a while. And Deadpool and Wolverine is starting to go ahead and generate that same thing. Back-to-back billion-dollar box office blockbusters in the summer. They've helped out the box office extensively. And they're also helping a lot when it comes to, you know, the movie theaters. Because I know in my Regal, of the movies I've watched this year, the ones that have given me, and I can always tell as a detector, right? When the concession stands are pretty busy, that tells you a movie's doing really well. So for me, I know that for a fact of the matter is, it wasn't so much Twisters. Bad Boys did okay when it came to people showing up and watching the movie. But for the most part, Inside Out, that brought crowds. And Deadpool and Wolverine on the Friday opening night, yeah, busy lines. Busy concession stands, packed to the gills. So they're making money over there. Plus, I also saw Regal with an enormous amount of merchandise for sale. From the bonded, like, little neck chain, the pendant, to Deadpool dolls, to, of course, the concession stand stuff with the, you know, cup and popcorn combo thing, T-shirts. I mean, they had so much swag over there. It was ridiculous. But they're doing really well with it. And, you know, they're going to go with it as much as they could. Plus, you know, they had different food stuff out there, too, which was very interesting. From, you know, what was it? Best Bubs popcorn. It was like a buffalo-style popcorn, and they made it for that. And I forget, there was something else. Like, it was like a duo. Oh, that's right. A duo nacho platter. It was like Tostitos and Doritos on the same nachos tray or whatever. Something like that. They were doing that as well. Really going all out. Let's just merch away on this and see if people, while they're at the movie theater, they're going to go ahead and, you know, treat it like a concert. And let's just get some extra merch and some other merchandise to, you know, swag just to take home, because we're big fans, right? I'm surprised they didn't do this for the other Marvel movies that they had, like Avengers and all. But I guess that'll come up soon enough, right? We know that'll probably be at some point. Very interesting story. We have another bundle coming out in the streaming world. Starz and BritBox coming together on a new bundle. So now Starz and BBC Studios BritBox are going to come together on a new bundle next quarter as streamers big and small continue to pair up. That's very interesting. So the combination will see the respective apps bundled directly through Starz.com. Interesting. So I've always been kind of fascinated with the idea of if I could get my hands on watching BritBox, but I don't want to pay the $9.99. But you know what? If you give me that with Starz, that is much more appealing to me. I do like that. Deadline has done a great job, as well as they've talked about the Hollywood and media layoffs so far that have already happened this year, because it is expansive what they've done right now. And this is where, you know, when you look at the digital disruption and you look at what the internet has done to make things so hard for companies to go and follow along, I'm telling you, like, this is where I don't want to be a part of that. You know, they don't care much about content. And they don't care much about content, obviously, because they're spending less money on content. They're more used to dealing with particular intellectual properties that have already had tried and true results, that they would never go and do anything else with them, right? And some of this also goes along with, you know, various linear projects that are also being dwindled down. So I don't even know how they're going to survive with what they do, with the things that they do. Entertainment Tonight, which has been around for 44 seasons coming up this September. They're going to be doing layoffs to impact the news desk and TV and editorial departments. CNN is laying off about 2.9% of its workforce. And they've already been dropping out so many people as we speak. Byron Allen Media Group, which is entertainmentstudios.tv, the Weather Channel, the Griot, and the Motion Picture Division, they're all going with layoffs there. There's a lot of companies doing all this. Netflix will lay off a few. Marvel lays off a few. Website The Messenger is going to be dropping out and shutting down at the end of next year. At the start of next year, excuse me. Has laid off 100 people since January. And Google was already planning to go and lay off more than 1,000 workers across several divisions. And Broadcasting and Cable, which is a magazine I've followed along even back in the 90s. It used to be like a relevant thing. Well, that's also going down. Trade publications for television, Broadcasting and Cable, and multi-channel news. They're going to both be shut down. Now, Broadcasting and Cable traces this print edition all the way back to 1931 when it first launched as Broadcasting Magazine. A nearly 100-year publication gone just like that. Wow, man, I hadn't paid attention to that magazine for a long time. And plus, as a trade mag, it costs so much to go and get it, so it didn't matter to me anyway. Okay, back to my favorite radio punching bag, because I got to talk about radio. What can I say? iHeartMedia continues to shamelessly continue to move on without any recompense or any kind of consequences for what they do. So the podcast segment is driving quarterly revenue results, they said. But the company's still showing a wider net loss this quarter compared to last year. Let's go through their things right now. Podcast revenue went up 8% for the company. And the revenue for that is what? $104 million. That's not much of a dent. Overall revenue in digital audio, which includes podcasting, has gone up 10% to reach $286 million. So there's revenue growth in podcasting, but it doesn't talk about the rest of the other things that are going on here. Multi-platform revenue, which is iHeartMedia's broadcast radio networks and events businesses, fell $20 million or 3.4% due to a decrease in broadcast advertising in connection with the continued uncertain market conditions. They always say this, uncertain market conditions. The company says they were partially offset by an increase in non-cash trade revenues and political revenues. Right. Yeah, not-for-profit or political ads. Again, nobody is advertising on radio. Do I need to explain again why is that? Why are they consistently having a problem finding advertisers? I can give you a bunch of different ideas. I mean, I did that for a couple of weeks over the summer, but, those fall on deaf ears. But no matter what, iHeartMedia, they can't figure out any way to go and help themselves. They're going to continue to have an audience that's going to dwindle and get older and older. You're going to cater to them more and more because they can't do anything else. And they have all these excuses as to why they have to go ahead and extend their debt, extend their interest notes, or, continue to lay people off because they're doing that too. We're going to talk about that in a minute as well. So they're reporting an operating loss of $910 million compared to $897 million in quarter 2 of 2023. Yeah, they're losing more money year after year per quarter. Bob Pittman speaks about this. Our second quarter results mark the first quarter that our consolidated revenues increased year over year since the fourth quarter of 2022. We'll continue to see strong momentum in our podcast business. So they think the podcast business is going to overcome and, help subside the stakeholders' concerns that the radio division is dwindling and failing. All right. Bob Pittman says that, quote, this performance is built on iHeartMedia's strong and unparalleled audience and demonstrates the progress we are making in the maximizing of the monetization of it. Let me just look at this one more time. Okay. Podcasting rose 8% for $104.5 million. Right. That's the money they've made in podcasting. Meanwhile, the radio division continues to lose money at $20 million a pop every quarter. Maybe not every time, but always on average. But a whole operating loss because they're holding on to these stations. Remember, there's the stations that are not making money. And, of course, the debt they still accrue, which is still an operating loss of $910 million. No answer to that. Our full year 2024 political revenues are currently pacing approximately 20% higher than the last presidential election cycle. So confidence will be that it will be a record political year for us. And we expect to see a significant year-over-year improvement in our full year adjusted EBITDA performance. They're never going to pay off their debt. Can we just make that clear? No one is going to call their marker. And iHeartMedia, it doesn't matter if they go to another bankruptcy hearing or not to dwindle down the $5.2 billion they still can't pay off. They're allowed to live in debt, a debt that they cannot pay for. Listen, many other companies can have debt on their books, on their sheets, the balance sheets, right? But it's proven time after time. And the stakeholders that decided to go ahead and buy in, back in 2018 when they got out of bankruptcy, when they decided to go and go public again and have, a start in where the price went up to $23 and dropped back down to under $2 again per share. Okay, let's look at Odyssey. Remember, they got a couple $1 billion in debt. Their shares are worth nothing. If they haven't been delisted from the stock exchange or from NASDAQ, they're going to. Okay. Remember when they tried to split their stock? I haven't even checked to see if their stock has actually even gone up any higher than it has. But I haven't checked that yet. And I do need to go and look at that and see what they've done. Oh, here we go. What a wonderful price. 11 cents. Odyssey stock is now 11 cents per share. I mean, at one point, they are definitely not, they are devalued. They're OTC markets, by the way. They are pink stock. And I forgot when it was that they got officially delisted, but, they're done. 11 cents. That's incredible. Bob Pittman has also been speaking out more about the fact of how, according to Inside Radio, targeting is resizing audiences, but iHeart and Bob Pittman see a return to mass reach. There's a video that goes alongside with this, which I should go ahead and play. And, I guess I'll go ahead and take a listen to it and see what he actually says here, because this is a bit fascinating. It's 3 minutes long, but, I don't mind to go ahead and hear what he says to the Nielsen Insight Studio about the crucial role audio plays in modern marketing strategy. So, yeah, Bob Pittman, I always talk about him, never hear him talk too much. I've heard him in previous documentaries on other things, but, yeah, never much about this. Yeah, this right here, I'm going to go ahead and let's just see how far I can go with this.
Well, I think this year we're seeing brand building and sort of the mass reach coming back in vogue. I think people have gone through that phase of over-targeting. The audience has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller, and they realize these people that are outside here aren't responding, aren't able to do it, and the basics of marketing are the more people hear your message, the more people can buy your product.
Now, the thing is, we've had a long time where, especially going back with the Billboard charts, and when you started seeing the segmentation of music, where popular music just started going and getting segmented into various other formats because of the fact that, some music just got a bit more risque, a little bit more graphic, a little bit more strong in language, that things changed with the format of what a rock station or a pop station would go ahead and play. So in the 90s, we had a segmentation where we had, various stations that were alternative or more rock oriented, and it was just going in a different direction. And then hip hop coming into play, and then R&B going into play, and, all these other stations kind of breaking out. And that's what happened. And you had, album oriented rock to alternative rock, or album adult alternative, right? Adult album alternative, whatever. And then others that came out, like there was hip hop, and then there was, a dance station and this and that, various formats that were changing. But the thing is that with radio, instead of trying to go ahead and break down and narrowcast, the audience that you have. Like, you're breaking down to smaller audiences when what you should be doing is actually trying to go ahead and reverse the course. That's the thing I think they don't realize that they should be doing, is that there should be less formats of stations and not more that we still have. Because right now there are certain formats that don't necessarily need to go ahead and be on their own. I think we can go ahead and have an urban radio station that could be just more R&B and hip hop and not just an R&B oriented format. And then stations that are throwbacks, they could be thrown in with, like, you know, a station that's hits and oldies or whatever it is. That's an R&B station. Urban adult could be much more in that realm, because now throwbacks, like, you know, the thing is, oldies was always like, it's whatever songs in the past 25 years and back, like from the start of the rock and roll era up until about 30 years ago. Usually, or like rock, classic rock would always be about 25 years is the cutoff of when any alternative or rock song becomes a classic rock song. It's usually how that normal kind of feeling is. But there should be more stations just playing similar music and just cut the amount of formats. You know, the branding of that, and, you know, bringing audiences together to consolidate. I think that should be more than ever to be done. That's what I would do. But anyway, that's what he says, what Bob is thinking here. But, like, you know, there's one thing about what he says and what is being applied to the company he works for, that he manages, that he operates.
And so I think we're seeing a return to that, and obviously good news for us. Well, 2025 as a marketing mix, I think, is seeing the return of reach and frequency. And I think audio provides that kind of incremental audience, especially radio. I mean, if you look at most digital, what's interesting about it is that people say, oh, they reach 30%, they reach 30%, they reach 30%, I'll get to 90%. Turns out they got a frequency of 3 because they were all reaching the same audience. Enormous overlap. About the only thing in digital that is not tremendous overlap is podcasting. And then when you look at radio, radio has this over 90% reach in a month and provides this incremental audience for every advertising campaign. So I think that's becoming important. I think also people are finding in their mix next year, they're looking for something that's very efficient to be always on, so they keep a constant presence. The cost of radio plus the reach of radio gives it this unique place in that media mix.
But the problem is, you cost so much. You know, the rates never go down, and there's not much that you give in terms of any kind of a deal when it comes to multi-platform. Because remember, with the radio companies, they want to go ahead and monetize every revenue stream possible. And they're going to separate them instead of consolidate, because they're not giving much of a deal on anything. Trust me, you want to go and talk to any radio companies right now and find out how much advertising is for them? It's a lot. And the truth is that, you know, these days there's not much you have to really do in terms of getting the radio audience listening to an ad. You don't have to go and do anything zingery with any kind of ads or any kind of, like, you know, production around it. You could just put a message out there, just a voiceover, and that's it. There's not much to that. But it's as if, well, the radio companies, they just want to create some kind of message for you that's going to be their way of doing it. Nothing overly creative, nothing overly special. But then again, the clients never really ask for much. But it's too much money anyway. That's what they say for marketing. Oh, well, you know, you could just kind of like bundle everybody together and get the same message out, or same kind of advertising or marketing out. It's like, you know, it's this, the thought process that he has here. Again, how much does he actually have iHeartMedia that applies to that? I mean, it's not like he's applying resources or anything towards that. Again, this is his thought of like how next year is going to play out. So it's always optimism. Let's just go look farther ahead, farther ahead. Don't worry about the now. Don't worry about the now. We're doing okay. You know, for a guy whose company is failing, okay, and then for podcasting, thinking he's doing so well, all they do is buy a couple of different companies that are doing podcasting, okay? That's one of the things that they've done for themselves, how stuff works, Wondery. They bought all these companies. Also, don't mention the fact of how they're all unionized as well, because of how poorly, you know, iHeartMedia treats their employees. You know, or the fact that these employees that came from other companies, when iHeartMedia took them over, well, they decided to go and start screwing them over like they do all their employees, right? Normally. Anyway, moving along.
And I think people, as we're having discussions, we're finding people are really looking hard at that. Well, when thinking about radio, I think advertisers need to remember it's about a third of the media use every day is audio. So if you're an advertiser and you're not using audio, you're going to go dark for a third of the day. So suddenly this person you're trying to talk to and trying to stay in contact with has gone silent. So I think that becomes very important. And I think also to keep in mind that actually radio is measurable. It wasn't for years, and I think there's still this perception, I can't measure radio, I can't measure the performance. You can now, and we're all investing heavily in those tools to allow people to do it.
Well, okay, hold on, Bob. Just because we're not using diaries anymore, we're using personal people meters. It's still a small sample size. Okay? You can't measure from the radios that are being operated on all the machines, all the cars, and all the other places that people can listen to from. Okay? A third of the audience. Let me just say this to you as well. Okay. Unless a lot of people are very accustomed to streaming through the iHeartRadio app or some other places, the radio station itself, or through a smart speaker, perhaps. But for the most part, if you're going to catch anybody listening to the radio, it's going to probably be in their car. But if you want to catch somebody for advertising, it's not really television anymore. And it's not really at all radio. It's social media. I consume more advertising from social media than anybody. It's all across the board. X finds a way to drop ads in for me. Instagram, Facebook. I click through those ads. I can't tell you how many times that, the targeted advertising they do catches me, and I go through the advertisements and I do buy stuff off of them. Guess what happens? TikTok shop, great example, more advertising. But there's so much advertising I consume from that. And then for television, the rare times is when I'm watching something that's live sports. That's when I'm catching ads. I'm not catching ads on the radio. And by the way, of the radio, let's be honest about this here. How often are you listening to the same ads over and over? Some insurance company, something McDonald's, something else in there, right? Or they're ads promoting iHeartRadio and their other projects or their radio stations or something else they put together because they're trying to fill time in the ad inventory when they haven't sold the ads yet. But they're going to keep the time slots for the ads still filled up at 6, 8, 10 minutes every half hour. All right. Let's continue here with Bob.
Well, iHeart's excited about a couple of things. One is what might sound a little boring, which is the investments we're making in measurement, so we can help people in planning and understanding the value of their audio investments. And the second thing is we're interested in sports. We just launched the Women's Sports Network, in which we're going to do regularly scheduled throughout the day on all of our radio stations reports on women's sports.
Hold on a second. All right. So going back to the fact he's going to try, he bought another company that's going to handle measurement. Okay. So he thinks that by promoting the metrics, they can go and spend whatever numbers they want to try to get advertisers on board. Maybe the advertisers don't need to worry about the fact that it's like you have metrics to show them. It's the fact that what they're listening to on the air doesn't sound appealing. With the amount of content you might give for free of music, which is the same music over and over, or the same bland talk programming that we've heard out there for over, okay, unless the talent is good, then they might stick around for whatever else happens with them. But how much good radio talent do you have on board at iHeartRadio? That's really good. I mean, listen, you want to listen in the morning to like Bobby Bones or Elvis Duran, and you want to think about the fact that, okay, of those shows, you're hearing the same kind of morning show stick that you've heard forever on those stations, on those shows. And then you're listening to maybe a couple songs in a particular morning show, time slot of 4 hours. And then how many ads are you listening to throughout the whole time in that morning day part? Loads. So nobody's paying attention to the programming part. Bob just thinks, well, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what's really on the air with us. It just matters that we have an audience that's going to probably listen in because, they're not subscribing to satellite radio. They're not, subscribing to the streaming services. They're still going to listen to us as a last resort. So you would get a default audience anyway. And the default audience, to be honest, they're not happy with the product. I mean, how many of them are listening to the advertisers? See, you can't measure, honestly, Bob. You can't really do it through personal people meters. I mean, guess you can, like because of the detection of the meters are supposed to be able to hear when you hear any ads or not. Okay, but let's not count the radio folks that you said there's a lot of stations playing the same kind of content. Well, what they're doing is, those same 3 stations or whatever that are competing with each other. Yeah. Then people like my cousin will just go ahead and flip around to another station when they don't want to hear commercials. Because there'll be somebody else playing music, hopefully, that's not in the middle of a commercial break. So people are not sitting around to listen to the ads, especially not sitting to listen through 8 minutes of ads in an hour, in a time slot, okay? And a spot break. They're not listening to 8-10 minutes. No. You think you can do the Howard Stern kind of thing and go 20 minutes long with ads? No, you can't do it. No. So nobody's listening to ads, Bob. And the investment into the Women's Sports Network. Okay. Besides the WNBA, let's say, the tours for LPGA, let's say tennis, WTA, right? Let's look at what else am I thinking about there? Olympics, anything World Championships, Olympic style events. How many women's sports are going to be there to carry 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? Boxing, MMA, are we going to cover those sports too? Like Women's Sports Network, you're going to invest in something that's going to be pretty hard to get off the ground, in terms of you're going to have to, it's like you're building for a new audience. Is there an audience out there that is enough women or enough people that are interested in women's sports? Okay. I'm trying to figure out how he thinks he's going to get Women's Sports Network to go and get off the ground. And again, he's going to do there's going to be particular segments that'll be run in the times where there will be advertising, but since they're not selling ads, they have all that extra valuable ad space because they're not going to just give it back to the content or the programming. No, they're going to put it on the ads. So we could just take this Women's Sports Network, hopefully get a sponsor on it, and we'll make some money on it. We'll put some content out. We'll make people feel good about it. Yeah. That's what Bob Pittman thinks.
And also doing on-demand podcast as well. And then finally, the Olympics are big this year.
Podcasts are on demand already. On-demand podcasts. Yeah, for Women's Sports Network. Can't be that hard to put together, huh? I mean, how much money and how much of a division are you going to have? And any kind of structure as to what the Women's Sports Network is going to be? I mean, do we have any idea of what that's supposed to be? Like what we're going to be getting out of that? I mean, it's the first I've heard about Women's Sports Audio Network. Okay, let me go back and look at it because they did put it out here back in January. The first audio platform dedicated to women's sports. So I didn't read about this yet, but I guess I can go ahead and bring this up here. They partner with Deep Blue Sports and the Women's Sports Audio Network, WSAN. Now, this is initially a free ad-supported network with podcasts, daily sports reports, spotlights, and audio vignettes. Oh, so they're going to try to get advertising for that. Like, how are you going to go ahead and invest in that there, Bob? They say that, elite women's sports, it's a $1 billion industry, currently expected to become a $1 billion industry, representing a 300% increase in just 3 years at Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and the WNBA itself. Okay. I mean, it's one thing to just do a little commentary and a little bit of vignettes and podcasts out there, but they also have to go and talk about, let's see, how about, the visual, being able to go ahead and follow along with a sport that people are going to be watching. That's the other part we got to be thinking about. Which sports are people going to be able to follow along and watch and see what they're going to be able to get? Just saying. Final comments from Bob Pittman.
And we are the audio home for the NBC coverage of the Olympics. So that's exciting for us as well.
I haven't watched or seen one bit of the Olympics coverage at all from iHeartRadio. Have you? If I wanted to listen to anything like, okay, let me ask this. Okay, we're at the end of the Olympics right now, and USA basketball, they just advanced to the gold medal game for, I guess, the men and women, correct? So what is it? Saturday at 3:30 p.m. Eastern. I can watch locally on TV the men's basketball team take on, I think it's France for the gold medal. I haven't found that on radio. They're just doing Olympics like vignette coverage, but not covering the game. Still play-by-play there, Bob. So, what's that supposed to be? I guess it's a partnership because Comcast maybe advertises with them, and that's why they have it? I'm not sure. So when it comes to the advertising that's out there in the first place, Nielsen, that's where Bob Pittman was talking to, Nielsen Insights, personal people meter trends show most formats have their ups and downs. So Inside Radio, in the last 2 years, they've been doing a monthly analysis of personal people meter cross-market average quarter-hour share data. Right now, adult contemporary and contemporary Christian music are trending up across the board. News talk, contemporary hit radio, and hot adult contemporary are headed down. And if you look at the numbers, they look at 4 key demographics. Adult contemporary's numbers are in the right direction in all 4 except for younger audiences, 18 to 34-year-olds. And then they look at adult contemporary, which is the soccer mom music, right? Oh, the best of the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. It is down sharply since January because of those demos. They think it's partly because some of these stations, they go to Christmas music. I don't know if it's that so much. So when they look at what the numbers are right now, news talk is trending down. Adult contemporary is static. Country has gone down. Classic hits are flat. Classic rock is not growing an audience. Adult urban contemporary is not growing an audience. Contemporary hit radio, top 40 radio continues to dwindle down. Again, no new music. They're not playing new music. They're not trying to cater to young adults. They're not trying to cater to younger audience at all. Sports is flat. Let's see. Contemporary Christian music, again, is going up. Urban contemporary, flat. Spanish regional Mexican, flat. Modern alternative rock, flat. And the rest of these other formats are also flat. They're just not making much of a difference at all. So Radio Inc. has put out some interesting information from the various program directors out there that they spoke to, and they were asked about how they navigate generative AI. Okay. So without giving names, they said this. One said, quote, I use AI in terms of creating promo scripts that will help us sound fresh. After so many years, you either have writing block or you get into the habit of using some of the same expressions. AI in this case can help me get a new perspective or even make a new idea spark. But they're using AI for the promo scripts because some of the production staff they might have had before is no longer there, so now they're relying on AI to do that. Okay. The advance of AI, quote, is sure fascinating to observe, listen to, and watch. However, I don't think it has advanced to the point where it sounds anywhere close to sounding human, and therefore I'm not using it at all in programming. Honestly, I can see or hear it right away. The lack of human inflection, feeling, flubs, and emotion is so apparent and phony sounding or looking. The advent of AI has made me feel much better about my imperfections and those of my other radio and video performers. Of the people that are out there now that are doing radio announcing, we're talking about the younger crowd, how good they are or they might be. I wish I could hear anybody that's out there that's, broadcasting live with a human inflection, feeling, flubs, and emotion. They must be talking about something from the past, not now. Another one says, I'm not using AI to program our station or produce our product. However, using it to create great art for our digital and social platforms. Yeah, not about the radio. Not utilizing it for radio because you can't think of it like that. Or using it as a research tool. Using it to create spec spots or scripts. There are some ways that make sense to dip a toe into the AI space. At least where AI is now, it will never replace a talk show host. AI does not have humor or empathy or the pathos necessary to connect with an audience in any kind of emotional way. Gotcha. Oh, they also go in here and quip, C-3PO was a great character in Star Wars, but would be a terrible afternoon draft host. Whatever. All right. the AI folks, the AI conversation on radio, so thought-provoking. Wow. I am like blown away by that. Yeah, it tells me everything I need to know about radio. But again, iHeartMedia and Bob Pittman, maybe he'll find some way to go in and measure with AI, or he'll do something else with AI that will help out. Maybe he can go ahead and ask AI, hey, what do I do? That'd be pretty funny, huh? He could ask AI, hey, how do I go ahead and, find a way to get rid of the debt? He should literally ask Gemini or ChatGPT, how do I get rid of my $5.7 billion in debt and still keep my $30 million of salary? Great question. Maybe you can find that out someday. Anyway, come back next week for the Broadcasters Podcast. Remember, the content is king and the control of your content is in your hands.